Radio check, radio check.
I heard you, Councilmember Sankey. Good morning. And I
Morning to
see
as
you.
well. Okay, thanks. Is that Tessa?
Yes, sir.
I know that voice. Good to hear you.
Good morning, everyone. We have quite a few folks joining us this morning, so we're just getting a count on quorum, and we will get started shortly, but thank you for your patience in the meantime.
Good morning.
Good morning, Supervisor. We hear you and we see you.
Good morning. Are we attached?
Good morning, Mayor.
Should be.
Yeah, I mean, it says that I am, but I don't think they hear me.
We can hear
I
you,
don't
Mayor.
think everyone's ready yet.
We can hear you, Mayor. Good morning.
Morning.
This is Nora.
Hi, Nora.
Hi, we can hear you.
Oh, good. I better shut up then.
It's okay. We're just waiting for quorum and then we'll be ready to start.
Okay, good.
Good morning, Mary. From
Hey.
Coronado.
Thank you, everyone, for your patience. We are waiting for quorum, and as soon as we have quorum, we'll start, okay?
Chair Vargas, this is Francesca. We do not have a quorum for RPC at this time. The Office of General Counsel has advised that we can begin the meeting and just pull the RPC items from the agenda for a later date if you'd like to go ahead and get started with just the TC portions. Or we can continue to wait for a few minutes. I'm just not sure if they're planning on attending or not.
Okay. Were they scheduled to attend, ma'am?
I did not receive an RSVP either way, so I'm not sure.
Okay. Why don't we go ahead? We have a quorum for transportation, correct?
Yes, we do.
Okay, just let me give me 1 minute so I can modify my agenda, and then we can go ahead and start. How about that?
Hey Vargas, if I can ask while you're doing that, if I could, this is Sean. Hi.
Yeah. Good morning.
If I know that the Mayor Salas is here, and I'm curious if there's any value to the record for at least there to be an indication that a couple of us were here. So if roll would be, I don't know if it's beneficial or not for roll to be taken. I just, the mayor showed up, the chair of the committee showed up here. And I want to make sure.
Yeah, no. I was just trying to figure out if there was a way. I don't know who the people are who are missing from your committee, and I was trying to figure out if I can give them a little bit more time, but it's already like 9:11. So unless, and I don't know who else is missing from your committee, so I was gonna just take a minute to try to figure out who those folks are. I was gonna try to figure that out.
Oh, got it. Okay. Yeah, and I was just gonna say if we could call the roll to figure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why don't we go? Yes, Chair, yes,
Coun-
Mayor.
Oh, I was gonna just let the council president know that we will indicate in the records for this meeting the attendance of those from the RPC as well.
Thank you so much. Okay. Thank you. Sure.
So long as there's not a quorum, we can't technically call roll, can we? For the RCP committee.
I don't think so.
We would fall short of quorum via the roll. But yeah. I mean,
Okay, just give me 1 second. It's almost 9:15, so if they don't get here by 9:15, we'll start transportation. But give me 1 second. I'm just gonna have to figure this out.
Our staff is working on contacting the members that are not in attendance right now as well.
I appreciate that. All right. So we're gonna go ahead. It's 9:15 a.m. and for purposes of the community and the transportation committee and all the members of the other committee as well who were able to join us, the regional planning committee. I unfortunately think we don't have enough members for the regional planning committee, so we're going to go ahead with the transportation committee. But the members of the committee who were here, the regional planning committee, those members have been duly noted by Ms. Francesca Webb. So we appreciate you being here, and you're welcome to stay as the presentations and the information will be shared as well. So with that,
Chair Vargas, I'm so sorry. We just heard that Mayor Wells is going to be able to join us shortly. So that would give us quorum for the RPC meeting as well. If you'd like to continue with our TC, we can always take the RPC items later in the agenda. I'm not sure how soon he'll be here, but I just wanted to let you know.
all right, so why don't I go ahead and start, because it's 9:15 and I think it's really rude. The community has been waiting for 15 minutes and I don't think it's appropriate to be waiting this long. So I'm going to go ahead and start. So good morning, welcome to the July 15th meeting of the Transportation Committee, and then we'll start the regional planning meeting when the rest of the committee members join us. So I'm going to ask the regional planning committee members that are here not to leave as we will be having quorum hopefully shortly. So before we get started, I want to share that we will be hosting simultaneous interpretation of this meeting into Spanish, and wanted to introduce our translator with Spanish language instructions. Carlos, I'm going to turn it over to you, please.
Thank you, Chair Vargas. Muy buenos días. Como se indicó, se está ofreciendo interpretación simultánea para esta reunión. Para hacer uso del servicio, solo es necesario se desplace a la barra de controles de Zoom, por lo que en la parte inferior de la pantalla. Ahí haga clic en el icono de interpretación, parece un globo terráqueo y seleccione Spanish o español. Si está utilizando la aplicación móvil de Zoom, en celular, tableta, etc., presione primero los puntos suspensivos o más, luego la interpretación y luego el idioma. Por último, si no desea escuchar el audio original en el fondo, por favor seleccione Mute Original Audio o silenciar audio original. Once again, simultaneous interpretation is being provided to and from Spanish. In the event that there are any comments in Spanish, to take advantage of the feature, all you need to do is scroll down to the bottom of the Zoom screen where your meeting controls are. There you will find an interpretation icon. It looks like a little world, and you would select English as your language. However, if you are joining through the Zoom mobile app on a cell phone, tablet, or other mobile device, you would first press More, the three dots, then Interpretation, and then choose your language. Finally, click on Mute Original Audio to not hear the original Spanish low in the background. Gracias, and thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Before we begin the Pledge of Allegiance, what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go back and begin the meeting again. July 15th joint meeting of the Transportation and Regional Planning Committee meeting at 9:18, as we officially have a quorum now from both committee members. And so now we have had our translator, Spanish language instructions. Now I'm going to ask everyone to please join me on the Pledge of Allegiance. If you can go ahead and put the flag on. Thank you very much. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Next, I'm going to ask our clerk, Ms. Francesca Webb, to confirm that we have a quorum for both committees. Ms. Webb?
Thank you, Chair. We do have a quorum for both the Regional Planning and Transportation Committee.
Thank you very much. I'd like to remind all the members on the public of our process for both members and public comments. The primary members will be using their cameras. We will take live public comments. Members are asked to turn on their cameras when they have a comment or question, and then we will then recognize you. I'll ask our legal counsel, Ms. Amberlyn Beaton, to provide a quick reminder of how the public comments will work, please. Ms. Eaton, please. Beaton, I'm sorry.
Good morning, and thank you, Chair. As a reminder to the public, members of the public were able to make comments both in advance via email and live during today's meeting. You may make public comments by joining the Zoom platform and pressing the raise hand button on the right-hand corner of your screen. The clerk will then call on you by the name that you have provided. If you're joining us by telephone, please press *9, which will raise your hand and indicate your desire to make a public comment. The clerk will then call on you by the last 3 digits of your telephone number. And then all comments, whether they were made by email or live during today's meeting, will be made part of our meeting record today.
Thank you very much. Now let's begin with item number 1, non-agenda public and member comments. Item number 1, public comments, communication members. I'll ask all the members of the public who wish to offer public comments not related to a matter on today's agenda to please raise your hand at this time so we can all call on you. Ms. Webb, do we have any public comments?
Thank you, Chair. At this time, I see 6 hands from the public. We'll begin with Alex Wong, who will be followed by Dr. Tim Bailish. Alex, you can go ahead when you're ready.
Yes, a tax increase is necessary to serve San Diego with excellent transit. Nonetheless, the reality is that Let's Go San Diego failed to put a half-cent sales tax increase on the ballots, and that drives home how hard transit tax funding is to get and how crucial fare box recovery is. Therefore, MTS should save up money to increase frequencies on Midcoast Trolley as soon as possible. Instead, Sandag and MTS are spending $7.6 million to subsidize free fares for all youth for 14 months. This is inefficient. To quote Colin Parents, director of Circulate San Diego, lower fares will not convince many people to take transit because transit is already much cheaper than owning and operating a car. Indeed, in Tallinn, Estonia, making transit free produced only modest gains in ridership, coming mostly from existing riders and pedestrians. Consequently, the number of trips made on foot dropped by 40%, while vehicle miles traveled increased, counterproductive to reducing emissions and congestion. Transit should encourage, not replace walking, and reduce vehicle miles traveled. Yes, transit has opportunity, especially for low-income riders, but only if transit is frequent. Time is money. Free but low-frequency transit is not opportunity. It makes it hard to get to school and work on time. Commuters cannot afford to be late, so they'll drive or rely on expensive ride shares instead. Imagine what 6.5 million per year could be spent on instead. In 2020, MTS launched a successful program to double off-peak, evening, and weekend South Bay Blue Line frequencies for only 5.7 million per year. If MTS similarly upgraded frequencies on the Midcoast Trolley, ridership and revenues would skyrocket. The Victoria Transport Policy Institute estimates that for every 1% increase in transit service, ridership will increase by 0.7 to 1.1%. And to quote the Manhattan Institute, if the marginal cost of an additional train are less than 39% of the average cost, quite possible as fixed costs such as track maintenance account for large portions of rail costs, running additional service would be net profitable. Per passenger subsidies on the Blue Line are already among the lowest of any MTS transit route. Therefore, increasing service on the Mid-Coast would require very low tax subsidies per passenger compared to increasing service on other lines. Furthermore, the Mid-Coast Trolley being anchored by downtown in the south and UCSD in the north means there will be a lot of all-day bi-directional ridership, making it cost-effective to increase even off-peak frequencies. These increased frequencies will encourage tons of short 10-15-minute trips on the Blue Line, the kind of trips that the current 15-minute frequencies discourage. I never expect transit in America to operate profitably. Some tax subsidies will always be necessary. What's not fine, though, is when Sandag plans to eliminate all transit fares by 2031, effectively driving the fare box recovery to 0%, even though, according to Sandag, the $30 million of annual Transnet funding to MTS will run out by 2030. It's crucial that MTS get the most bang for every buck by maximizing frequency to maximize fare box recovery and ridership, minimize congestion, and drive up voter support for a transit sales tax.
Thank you very much. I did want to note that since we have more than 5 members of the public who've raised their hand on this item, we will have to take some of those additional public comments at the end of the agenda as stated in the agenda notice. So I'm going to read the next 4 names, which will be Tim Bylash, Carl Aldinger, Jesse O'Sullivan, and Linda Scott. Will Radigan and Anar, I do have your names noted, and if you're able to stay till the end of the agenda, we'll be able to take your comments at that time. Otherwise, please feel free to reach out to me via email, and I'm happy to make those comments a part of the record. So we'll go ahead to Dr. Bylash and then to Carl Aldinger.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Apologize for background noise. Timothy Bylash, ND, MS, Mid-County Coastal San Diego. For the record, the unpaid public is here on time for the meeting. I'm sitting in a restaurant a few blocks from your office that requires no masking, social distancing, or closure, with exposure to just about anybody that walks in. My understanding is that the Sandag offices have been closed to the public for some time. I mainly wanted to congratulate and thank Sandag staff and their executives for their tireless expertise and successes that have been talked about, especially in the last few meetings. I would suggest a 7-day advance on your handouts for the meeting in terms of agenda and items, supporting documents, because it's very difficult to go through a 100-page document without the supporting documents that are going to be called on. And I echo some of the statements from other board members who have raised this concern as well. I know how difficult it is and how hard you're working. I think 7 days would improve the information flow and discussion. And I apologize for taking so much time this morning. It's a busy agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. And our next public speaker will be Carl Aldinger.
Hello, my name is Carl Aldinger, and I'm speaking today on behalf of Sierra Club San Diego. We would like to request that Sandag create a temporary protected bikeway during the construction of the new Bayshore Bikeway on Barrio Logan section of Harbor Drive. The new permanent infrastructure will eventually help to allow for much needed mode shift in transportation, enabling the community mobility with extremely low emissions. Barrio Logan already suffers from environmental and historic injustices, and it's not asking too much to ensure that people riding bikes during construction have a safe way of doing so. 3 weeks ago, a man was killed along this section on a bicycle, which was also 3 weeks after construction began. We ask that you be proactive during construction and make safety a priority for residents by putting up a protected bike lane. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Jesse O'Sullivan. Jesse, you can go ahead.
Good morning. My name is Jesse O'Sullivan, and I'm Policy Counsel with Circulate San Diego. We're a local nonprofit whose mission is to create excellent mobility choices and vibrant, healthy neighborhoods. I'm calling in today to support a temporary protected bike lane on Harbor Drive while the construction for the permanent Bayshore Bikeway Barrio Logan section is going on. As you heard, a man was killed on his bicycle in this section only 3 weeks ago. Sandag needs to prioritize safety even in the interim while this project's being constructed. We know it's possible to make safe temporary bike lanes the way that it was done on Pershing Drive. So please make it a priority to make sure that all road users are safe, and that while we're building what's going to be an excellent facility for bicycles, bicycles are still safe while it's under construction. Thank you.
Thank you. And our next public speaker will be Linda Scott. Linda, you can go ahead.
Hello, I want to say thank you to the board for hearing me today. It was my friend Donald Eichner that passed on Beardsley and Harbor the first day of summer when we're all thinking of riding our bikes. He was a avid bike rider, and the #1 speaker that gave all the numbers and dollars about bus riding. I think it dovetails well to say that bikers could then bike to those bus and have better transportation. Bottom line is, I can't bring my friend back, but in a community where there's lots of sunshine, the price of gas is very expensive. Buses and bikes make sense. And I hope that the community puts their money in what makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you. And Chair, that concludes the first 5 members of the public to speak. If you'd like to take the rest of the at the end of the agenda, we can do that.
We'll go ahead and do that. And now we're going to have member comments. Vice Chair Campillo.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. And I want to thank the callers for calling in this morning. I agree with many of the callers who voiced their concern about Harbor Drive, and I believe that immediate action should be taken to improve the safety for bicyclists and pedestrians along Harbor Drive. So I'm requesting that Sandag move expeditiously. We know that between 2016 and 2020, an average of 242 people walking and 80 people riding bikes were either killed or seriously injured on our streets in San Diego. In 2021, we had 17 bicyclists who were fatally injured. 3 serious injuries and 2 fatalities of bicyclists and pedestrians have occurred along the Barrio Logan segment of Harbor Drive. And just on, as the members of the public called, on the first day of summer, a 63-year-old bicyclist died after he was clipped by a moving vehicle near the intersection of Harbor Drive and Beardsley Street. We're asking San Diegans to use alternate forms of transportation, but we fall short to provide them with the infrastructure that allows them to do it safely. So I know we've put a lot of effort into this sort of problem already. I applaud Sandag and our partnership with the City of San Diego and National City as well to construct the Bayshore Bikeway, excuse me. And considering that we've just broken ground on the Barrio Logan segment with construction expected to take about 2 years, we can't be expecting bicyclists and pedestrians to use that area for the next 2 years in unsafe ways. So immediate solutions need to be used to protect it right now. Mayor Gloria demonstrated strong leadership when he directed San Diego City staff to add separators on Pershing Drive, where there had been numerous fatalities, to ensure that temporary safety while construction was ongoing. So we should do the same for Harbor Drive. And I'm asking Sandag to take that action to protect the bicyclists and pedestrians. I want to thank the callers again for their advocacy on this, and I thank Sandag staff for their partnership. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. This is a very important issue for us. Mr. Gustavo?
Thank you, Chair Vargas, and good morning to all the members of the Transportation Committee, the Regional Planning Committee, and the public. I know we're behind schedule, so I'm just going to mention three things very quickly. The first one, since we didn't have a meeting on July 1st, wanted to announce that Mario Orso has been appointed as the Chief Deputy for Capital Programs in Caltrans District 11. You all know Mario as our Trade Corridor Director for over a decade, leading projects near the border, including the SR11 project. But effective July 1st, Mario has been promoted to lead all of our capital programs here in District 11. Executive Director Ikrada and I agreed that Mario will continue to lead the State Route 11 Portoventi project to ensure that it's completed successfully. So a big congratulations to Mario on this promotion. A second thing I wanted to mention is we're in fiscal year 22-23, and we have a new budget. And I'm very excited to see that the California budget for this year includes $15 billion in additional state funds for investments in transportation along the lines of port infrastructure, high-speed rail, transit, active transportation. There's actually $1 billion for active transportation that these dollars should turn into safer bikeways for bicyclists and separating bikes from cars. There's also money for grade separations, climate adaptation, highways to boulevards, and one of my favorite topics, Clean California. So stay tuned as those dollars become projects and the public gets to enjoy them. The last thing I'll mention is this weekend is the Pride event here in San Diego. It's a huge and important event for all of our community. Our team here at Caltrans is made up of allies and members of the LGBTQ+ community. As we get together after 2 years without a full Pride event, we've done our best with the organizers to facilitate movement to the event and also around the event for everyone. So happy Pride for those participating and a safe Pride event for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Hilo Rivera?
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to kind of follow up with Councilmember Campillo. It's a really sad story, and appreciate the recommendation he just made. I rode actually on Sunday from San Diego to Imperial Beach, and there are stretches of harbor that are terrifying. Yeah, as Councilmember Campillo said, one, it's a tragedy. We are having families and communities torn apart when folks are injured and at times killed in these biking accidents. They're also, every time that it happens, it's an advertisement to the community about how dangerous it is, and makes it that much more difficult to reach the goals that we know we need to reach with respect to mode shift. So just wanted to recognize the tragedy that occurred and appreciate Councilmember Campillo for making the recommendation. Thank you, Chair.
You're welcome. Thank you. And actually, I was gonna wait until the end of the comments, but I was gonna just mention that I was gonna ask Sandag staff if they could provide us at the next meeting an update of what they actually have done to create some safety measures, and what are they gonna do to address some of these issues to address some of the challenges that our communities are having. And of course, the tragedy that took place in our community is one that we don't want to make sure it occurs again. And so I know that my staff is going to be working closely with the Sandag team, but I think it would be important for them to come back and let us know what are the safety measures directly that they're going to be putting in place so that our communities are safe as well. But because it's not an agendized item, I figured we can just go ahead and do that separately. So thank you, members, for bringing that up. Councilmember Hall.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And I just wanted to start off and try to be on a positive note. it's noteworthy that we're going to spend the next 2 to 3 years going back through our plan. And one of the things that I've noticed over the last 2 or 3 years is this board isn't aligned. And that maybe before we dive too deep into the technical aspects of what we have to do, that we listen to one another and try and figure a way to build consensus and collaboration. So at the end of the time, we're much more united than we are today. And so for the credibility of this organization, I think we owe it to ourselves and to the community to have those kinds of conversations before we move forward and dive deeply. And so those are just my beginning comments for today. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Contreras, I know you had, you wanted to speak, but I wasn't sure if you wanted to speak at this time or you're going to wait until the end. You are a member of the Transportation Committee, so you're able to speak at this time. I can't see you anymore. Councilmember, I think she's gone.
We,
All right.
we can promote her again, Chair, and allow her to speak if that is your preference.
I think, wasn't she a member of the Transportation Committee?
She was, but she let us know that she's attending as a member of the public to speak for
Got
the
it.
climate action campaign.
Got it. Okay. All right. We'll wait. All right. Mr. Hall.
I think I've already spoken. Thank you.
Okay. I just wasn't sure if you had your hand up. Okay. You're good. There we go. All right. Seeing no other comments, our next item, thank you everyone for your comments. The next item on the agenda is the agency report, which will be provided by Ms. Antoinette Muir. Over to you is item number 2.
Thank you, Chair. I know the agenda says Colleen is giving the update, but she's on a well-deserved vacation this week, so I'm happy to provide the agency report. A lot of exciting things happening around here the last few weeks. So I'm sure you've all seen in the news that earlier this month, Governor Newsom signed a state budget package, and it included billions of dollars for public transit, active transportation, grade separations, and climate adaptation projects. And from that package, $300 million was awarded to Sandag for the Low-Sand Rail Realignment Project near Del Mar. We've been talking about this project for decades, and with this funding, we're going to be able to begin design and environmental work to move the tracks away from the bluffs finally. This down payment provides the region with the resources to also leverage additional federal funding opportunities, and this was possible thanks to the leadership of Senator President Pro Tem Atkins. I also want to recognize Senator Ben Hueso for securing $20 million for Sandag to pay down bond balances. And a big shout out to our Director of Public Affairs, Robin Wapner, and her team for the work that they did to secure this funding. In June, we also learned that we've received a $1 million grant for the Buena Vista Lagoon Enhancement Project from the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. And this is a significant investment to complete environmental engineering and design work. This is something we've also been working on for many years, and it's actually the last lagoon to be rehabilitated in our region. We're really proud of all the work the grants team has accomplished to secure funding for these important projects. In other news last month, Sandag, Caltrans, and MTS successfully launched the Bus on Shoulder pilot project as part of the South Bay Rapid Transit route. This project is actually the first in the country using transit vehicle-to-infrastructure technology, which allows buses to communicate with freeway ramp meters. Driver assistance technology includes sensors that monitor the lanes and provide audio and visual alerts to help operators avoid potential conflicts and make sure that safety is the top priority. And as you know, Sandag's Youth Opportunity Pass program started on May 1st, and we've seen significant increases in ridership already. You're going to get an update on this project from the mobility team later in the agenda. And a quick update on the Central Mobility Hub project. At our Board of Directors meeting next week, staff will provide the board with an updated plan for moving forward on the airport connection. On Otay Mesa East, we're getting ready to celebrate the completion of the southbound SR 125 to westbound SR 905 connector ramp, and the completion of this connector is a critical component of the State Route 11 Otay Mesa East Port of Entry project, which is actually a federal, state, and local priority. The connector is one of the last remaining infrastructure improvements underway that will ultimately support mobility to and from the future port of entry, helping to fuel economic growth and bolster binational trade. It's also a nice warm-up to the groundbreaking for the port of entry that will happen later this year. I also wanted to share that we just completed our triennial review with the Federal Transit Administration, and Sandag was highly praised by the FTA and the consultant who conducted the review. And some of the notes that they gave us at the exit conference were that our DBE program is best in class and the best DBE documentation that they've seen. Our 5310 program management is the best in practice, and coordination among departments is excellent at Sandag. They also praised our procurement file documentation and drawdown documentation and noted other areas such as our public participation process, equal employment opportunities, civil rights, and protest process. So it was really great to hear from one of our most important funders that we are responsible stewards of public funds. And this concludes my report. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Please raise your hand at this time if you have any comments on this item. I don't think we have any comments. Ms. Webb, do we have any public comments or any member comments on this item?
We do not have any comments on this item that I can see.
All right, thank you so much. And thank you for that presentation. We are really looking forward to all those resources being implemented in our communities. Now, our Joint Transportation and Regional Planning Committee report is next. This item is going to have 6 presentations, and so I am going to ask that each of the members hold comments and questions until we hear all of the items, and then we're going to take public comments after the staff presentations conclude, and then we're going to move on to member comments. With that, I'm going to hand it back over to our Director of Regional Planning, Ms. Antoinette Mier, and her team. Antoinette.
Thank you. So since the adoption of the 2021 regional plan just 7 months ago, we have made a significant amount of progress on many of the near-term implementation actions in the regional plan. And we're super excited to share that progress with you today. It's also going to be a pleasure to introduce to you some new amazing staff behind these projects, several who have never presented to you before. As a quick reminder, the 2021 regional plan included an implementation strategy. It's Appendix B of the regional plan, and it lays out actions Sandag will take to implement the plan in the near term. And the near term is defined as by 2025. All of the implementation actions are organized under 10 priority areas. If you could switch to the next slide, please. And those priority areas are displayed on this slide. So applying a social equity planning framework, completing the comprehensive multimodal corridor plans, updating Sandag policies, evaluating free transit, seeking new funding, advancing the next operating system and preparing for the future of transportation, implementing the RTIP, establishing new and collaborative partnerships, expanding and supporting low carbon transportation options, safety, habitat conservation, and neighborhood-based climate solutions, and advancing our data science program. The team has made a tremendous amount of progress on many of the near-term commitments under these priority areas, and we obviously don't have time to go over all of those projects today, but we do want to feature 5 projects, and then over the remainder of the year, we'll continue to come back and provide updates on many of the other projects. So for today, we're going to be discussing, if you could switch to the next slide, please, the Youth Opportunity Pass program, the Regional Transit Fare Impact Study, flexible fleets, the request for innovative concepts, our social equity baseline conditions report, and last Vision Zero. So as the chair mentioned, we've structured this as a multi-part presentation. Each of the staff leads for the featured projects is going to provide a very brief presentation. And then if there's clarifying questions, we could take those, but we'll reserve the general comments from the board and the public until the end of the presentation, just to make sure that we can get through all of this material. So first, it's my pleasure to introduce Brian Lane. He's going to provide the update on the Youth Opportunity Pass program and the Regional Transit Fare Impact Study. Brian is also actually the newly appointed staff coordinator for the Transportation Committee, so you're going to be seeing much more of him. Both of these projects are near-term actions under the priority area that's focused on evaluating the transition to free public transit. So Brian, go ahead and take it away.
Thanks, Antoinette, and good morning, TC and RPC. I'm going to give a quick update on the Youth Opportunity Pass and then talk about the Regional Transit Fare Impact Study that we have planned to start in the coming months. Next slide, please. So as you're all aware, the Youth Opportunity Pass launched May 1st, and it was providing free transit service to all youth that are 18 and under region-wide for all fixed route transit services. Sandag staff, in coordination with our local stakeholders and CBO groups, have distributed more than 10,000 Pronto cards to youth riders, schools, and community organizations. MTS and NCTD have given out probably an equal amount of cards at their offices, stores, and some of the pop-up events that they did. And since we've started this, the distribution of the cards back in early April, we've had over 13,000 youth sign up for the virtual card through the Pronto mobile app. So we have a lot of youth using both either the app or the cards that we've distributed, and we've seen a high success rate with utilization of those. On the next slide, I'll show you some of our initial data from the first month of the program in May. It's been obviously the data showing that it's been exceedingly popular. For weekdays, we've seen a 36% increase in riders. On an average weekday, over 16,000 youth riders riding when it was just about 12,000 on an average weekday in April. Saturday and Sunday, we've seen big increases as well, and we're happy to see that, showing that the youth not only are needing the cards to get to school, but also other activities to get around the region, and that's what we're hoping to see with programs like this. We had a 75% increase in the actual number of individual riders, so that basically means, you know, for every 100 riders that were riding in April, we've had now 175 youth riding at any given point throughout the month. On average, they ride about 20 times per month based on this data, and we're happy to see these increases. We've looked at some of the data, and we've seen that there's popular routes throughout the region. In North County, the Route 350 and 354 in Escondido have seen some of the biggest increases from May over April. MTS's routes 28 and 44 in the city of San Diego, routes 855, 856 in East County. Up in North County, routes 302, 303, and 305 as well. So it's good to see that it's spread out along a lot of the routes and it's being successful. So jumping in on the next slide, there's more going on with the future of youth transit and transit equity as part of this full pilot. Just this month, MTS and NCTD began their Pronto Extend program, which offers free passes for former foster youth aged 19 to 24 who have aged out of their traditional foster programs. I think this was a collaboration with the County of San Diego, and they're already seeing success with this as well. That program is currently funded through the end of this fiscal year, similar to how the Youth Opportunity Passes program is funded. So we do know that these programs aren't cheap. They can be expensive, as we heard a public comment earlier. And so we are looking to see how we can make these permanent and what kind of funding it does take. So we're proactively working with the financial officers at MTS and NCTD to understand ways we could find the funds to do this. We're working with our legislative staff at all three agencies as well to look for any state legislation or other things in the work that could possibly fund this. We'll look to come back later this fall or winter as we start preparing the budgets for the next fiscal year to see the ways we can to do this. We do know, you know, it's not cheap, like we've heard. The Youth Pass is likely about $6 million a year in 2019 dollars. To increase that to 24 and under, you'd be looking at likely $35 million a year. So these are a lot of the things we need to look at to figure out how much it would cost and how we may be able to fund this long term. And then lastly, as part of this pilot, we're still looking at doing service increases in various areas to further the equity work that we're doing. And that work is coming along still with our stakeholder groups. We do realize there are staffing shortages still at MTS and NCTD, and they're slightly still cutting some services so they can keep their services on time and on schedule. So we'll see how the staffing works out throughout this fall to see if we can still do that portion of this pilot this fall. So on the next slide, as we mentioned, there is a regional transit fare impact study. That was a big part of the near-term implementation items in the regional plan. We want to look at a long-term vision of how to decrease fares and get more riders riding transit. There's a lot of things we're gonna have to work through in this study over the coming months before we can come back to you. But working with the public and TC members, stakeholders, other MTS and NCTD, we need to really get into the weeds of everything that's involved when you may decrease fares for various folks. First off, you know that obviously there's a reduction in revenues, and fare box revenues are important component of both MTS and NCD's budgets. So that's something we'll need to, try and understand and look at all the alternates and how much they cost. Employer and college programs are a significant portion of both transit agencies' budgets as well. So if you make cuts to those, that's a further part. And there may be opportunities for partnerships with colleges and employers to subsidize fares on their end rather than on the transit agency side. When you decrease fares, the more you decrease it, the more ridership you will get, obviously, and that could have impacts on cost. You may need to add trips to handle the overcrowding. You may need to increase their staffing to deal with those increased trips. So that's something you need to consider as we work through this study. And then, like we did here in that public comment earlier, there's trade-offs with reducing fares or improving transit services. And it doesn't have to be one or the other, or it's not black and white. We'll look at that and look at the ties. If we only had funding that could only be used for fares, then obviously that's what we would look to do. But if there's ways to do either, then that's the trade-offs we'll have to look at throughout this study. And that's going to be a very important part. We have heard from surveys within our own county and nationally that, folks do want more frequent, fast service. And that's obviously what's in our regional plan. And as we look towards more funding, we'll try to look at those trade-offs. So that's very important as part of this study. And we'll really get a lot of feedback from the public on that kind of a feedback or that trade-off. And then also, communities have different ideas of how they would like their transit to be in their areas. Some may like cheaper transit more than, they already have enough transit. So cheaper to them might be more important. So really talking to the communities and getting out there and understanding what they would like and how those trade-offs should be balanced will be an important part of the study. And with that, I'll hand it back to Antoinette.
Thank you, Chair. Did you want to take technical clarifying questions before we move to the next item?
Why don't we go ahead, okay, do you have a, Vice Chair Campillo, do you have a technical question?
No, it's not a technical question. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, only technical questions at this time. Otherwise, we're going to go ahead and continue on. All right, let's go ahead with the next item, please.
All right, so next up, we have an update on flexible fleets by Eva Sanchez from our mobility planning section. This is actually Eva's first time presenting to you, and she's one of our rising stars at SANDAG. Planning and implementing flexible fleet pilot projects is a near-term action that's under the priority area that's focused on implementing the Regional Transportation Improvement Program. And Eva, go ahead and let's share what the progress we've made on planning for flexible fleets.
Thank you, Antoinette, and good morning, members of the Transportation and Regional Planning Committees. It's my pleasure to be here today to share updates on the progress that we've made to implement our flexible fleet strategy. Next slide, please. The flexible fleet strategy of the 5 big moves envisions providing shared on-demand services that provide convenient mobility options. They include services ranging from smaller micromobility devices like dockless scooters to services like rideshare and on-demand microtransit. The adoption of the 2021 Regional Transportation Improvement Program included $4.7 million to fund the planning and implementation of flexible fleets. Nearly $300,000 of this funding is allocated to the development of the Flexible Fleets Implementation Strategic Plan. And so today I'll be sharing an update on this strategic plan and steps that we're taking to prepare for pilot implementation. Next slide, please. So before investing millions into flexible fleet services across the region, we wanted to be thoughtful with our approach and ensure that services that we invest in are helping SANDAG and partner agencies meet our regional transportation, equity, and climate goals. So that's why we're developing a strategic plan, which will serve as a guide for near-term implementation as part of the regional plan. We started the strategic planning process by setting goals and objectives which are closely aligned with our regional plan goals, but tailored to flexible fleet services. And these goals later on can be used to monitor performance of flexible fleets services and adapt the services as needed. We also established an evaluation criteria using both quantitative and qualitative data to identify opportunity areas across the region, which I'll discuss in just a moment. And as part of this strategic plan, we're developing what we call use cases, which will demonstrate how flexible fleets can operate to serve different users and different transportation needs. And each of these use cases will include implementation strategies to prepare SANDAG to start piloting flexible fleets. And we're estimating that we can launch roughly 2 to 4 pilots with the funding that we do have available. Next slide. During the development of the 2021 regional plan, we did a lot of case study research and engagement with the private sector to understand the optimal environments and characteristics of flexible fleets. And an analysis was even done to assign a mix of flexible fleet services to each of the mobility hubs. So we used a lot of that information in the strategic plan and applied it to an evaluation criteria to take an even deeper dive into assessing where we can prioritize near-term investments in flexible fleets. The evaluation criteria used quantitative data like travel data, population and employment densities, and demographic data, including looking at areas with low income, senior, and minority populations where flexible fleets could benefit those areas. And while it's important to look at the data, we also wanted to hear directly from the stakeholders that we work with and from community members, especially in our underrepresented communities. So we engaged our network of community-based organizations throughout this process. We also engaged stakeholders like MTS and NCTD, our local cities, and through a number of meetings, workshops, and surveys, we were able to capture more qualitative information on how flexible fleets can be deployed to serve a range of different travel needs. Next slide. So based on the data that we looked at and the feedback that we heard throughout our stakeholder discussions, we discovered some common themes for the different transportation needs in our region and how flexible fleets can address those needs. So for example, flexible fleets are needed to provide connections to and from transit. So micromobility and rideshare are examples of flexible fleet services that can provide these types of first and last mile connections. Flexible fleets are also needed simply to provide point-to-point trip options or provide more short trip options in addition to transit. So one example of this is the Fred service operating in downtown San Diego currently, where you can be picked up or dropped off anywhere within the defined service area. And there's also some areas in the region where transit hasn't been performing well, and there's areas that are challenging to serve with fixed route transit. And these are areas where more on-demand connector and microtransit services can be tested. So overall, these are just some of the high-level types of services that will be included in the final set of use cases. And we'll also recommend specific locations in the region where these types of services can be applied. And along with each of the use cases, we'll include implementation strategies that will inform our pilot operation. So including recommendations for supportive policies, infrastructure, and equity considerations. Next slide, please. So while SANDAG is doing a lot of the initial planning work to prepare for flexible fleet deployments, we'll need the private sector to partner with us and to operate these flexible fleet services. So as we finalize the strategic plan by September of this year, we'll also have completed a procurement to establish on-call flexible fleet service providers. We'll work with these providers to launch the pilots that are identified in the strategic plan, but they'll also be available for our partner agencies to use as needed, including our local cities, transit agencies, and other regional partners such as our universities, military bases, and nonprofit organizations. These providers will be tasked with pilot planning and design all the way to service delivery, operations, and performance monitoring. We've built in capacity for up to 25 million, and these providers will be contracted for the next 3 years with the option to extend another 2 years. We released the request for proposals in February and received a total of 10 proposals. The evaluation committee recommended 5 providers for award, and just last week we took this recommendation to the board of directors as a consent item, and it was approved. So as a next step, we'll be moving forward with the negotiations process. So that concludes my update for flexible fleets today, but we'll certainly continue to share updates with this group and our other committees and working groups. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions before we move on to the next item.
Thank you, Ms. Sanchez. I don't think, Mr. Hall, are there any technical questions or comments?
Yes, when we talk about working with the private sector, does any of this get into autonomous vehicles?
The services that or the providers that we recommended as part of the flexible fleet on-calls do not provide autonomous vehicles at this moment.
Are we looking towards that technology at this moment in time, or are we working with anyone that is dealing with autonomous vehicles?
Yes, Mayor Hall, actually, in the next item, you're going to hear all about that. We do.
Okay, okay, I wasn't sure which one she started. I'll be quiet.
It's good, it's good. It's a great question. All right, any other technical questions at this time? All right, if not, we're going to go ahead and go to the next one. Thank you.
All right, so next we have an update on the request for innovative concepts, or RFIC, for connector services. And we're really excited to be sharing publicly for the first time today the outcomes of the first phase of this unique competition. So the RFIC is a near-term action under the priority area that's focused on implementing the Regional Transportation Improvement Program. And Danielle Coachman, who's our Manager of Strategic Partnerships today, will present on this item. So Danielle.
Good morning. On November 1st, we issued the request for innovative concepts. And the goal really was to try a collaborative process to see how we could work with the private sector to leverage new technology, new transportation trends, and new project delivery methods to bring the vision that's included in the regional plan to life. What we were asking for through the procurement, next slide, is for the submission of innovative concepts that could help us achieve the goals of the regional plan, which is a transportation system that is fairer, faster, and cleaner. We didn't limit the proposals and what they could submit. We really left it open, broad open, as far as geographic area, type of service, type of transportation mode. But we did include 5 key transportation challenges that we thought should rise to the top, and they could consider those or propose on something else. The 5 transportation challenges that we highlighted were the Blue Line Trolley Corridor, the decentralized employment centers throughout the region of San Diego, making it challenging to serve commute patterns, connectivity in the downtown and greater downtown area, congestion at our border, and then east-west connectivity within the region. In late January, we received 18 proposals. They all included comprehensive teams, which was really exciting. They have firms providing planning services, engineering, construction, technology, financing, and outreach, just to name a few. We had an evaluation committee that met, both with internal staff and also some of external partners. And then they evaluated all 18 and chose 8 to interview. And upon conclusion of the 8, evaluating based on their ability to address transportation challenges and goals, project readiness and feasibility, project team experience, and cost and partnership opportunities, the top 3 were selected to advance into phase 2. The first one that was selected was BEEP, which you see up here on the screen. BEEP has that autonomous vehicle that Mayor Hall was asking about. This proposal focused on both the flexible fleet concept and also the mobility hub concepts in the regional plan. It includes these electric autonomous shuttles pictured here that would provide connector service within the community, and then also first last mile connection to transit. The concept also proposes to build out electric vehicle infrastructure and other mobility hub amenities near transit. And the electric vehicle infrastructure is part of the capital that the proposal team is saying that they're going to bring to the table. The submission really focused on a commitment to equity, and they're going to work with us to identify the initial area for pilot deployment during the first phase, and then it's a scalable idea. So after the first community, we could easily scale it to other mobility hubs throughout the community. Moving on to the next one, Cordoba. was a team that submitted, a team led by Cordoba submitted a proposal to extend the Blue Line trolley into Tijuana about 1 mile, where it would terminate at a secure pre-clearance facility for customs and immigration. This proposal also includes an expansion of the San Ysidro Transit Center into a 2-story multimodal center, as envisioned in this picture. And the proposal also includes intelligent transportation system improvements at the border. So this concept is really focused on easing congestion at the border, improving travel choices, and improving air quality in the surrounding communities. The next proposal that was submitted was led by Global Via. And this concept proposes using the newest, best technology to begin developing the next generation managed lanes network envisioned in the regional plan. The proposal also includes prioritized transit in the corridor and also transit connecting into the communities surrounding the corridor. The next generation managed lanes would be flexible, able to assign to different uses, and ready for the newest transportation technology, including autonomous and connected vehicles to operate within them. And so really the intent of this project is to showcase how managed lanes can really prioritize transit and improve reliability for alternative transportation services and improve operations within corridors. So next steps, this is phase 2. We're calling the innovative concept development phase. We just executed MOUs with each of these 3 to continue in this phase. And we're going to begin working collaboratively. So this initial was them submitting proposals. And now we're going to begin having a little bit of a back and forth, refining the concepts, really refining the areas that are going to be served, site selection, and ensuring alignment with our regional plan, the flexible fleet implementation strategic plan, and also our other, regions goals. We'll also facilitate discussions with member jurisdictions and partner agencies like Caltrans and the transit operators in our county, and begin to explore between SANDAG and the teams what a partnership would look like. At this time, there's no commitment to implementing these concepts, but we're going to explore the potential of these projects along with the feasibility of implementing them, potential risks, and a better understanding of the cost of these projects and what the opportunities are for funding and financing them. We will be facilitating a network event for these teams in late summer so that they can look to expand their teams and have other firms join if it's appropriate. And we did that because we got so many great proposals in the first round, and we think that some of the technology and other companies may have transferable items that could be incorporated into these proposals. And then in the fall, we're going to have a showcase event where the teams will present their concepts to our board, local leaders, stakeholders, and also the general public. As the details for this event become available, we'll keep you informed. And then at the conclusion of that event will be the time to decide if we want to move forward with any or all of these concepts. So at this point, they aren't competing against each other. We aren't ranking them and selecting one. We can move forward with 0, 1, 2, or 3. Each decision will be made individually based on the merits of the project and potential barriers to implementation. So this is really intended to be a different approach to procurement, something that we haven't done before. And we're also hoping to take away some lessons learned from the actual process itself that we can apply to future efforts when trying to implement projects. So that concludes my report, and I can take technical questions.
Member Hall.
Yes, and this is one that really excites me, and it also I think can be somewhat concerning. Is that we as the transit agency, how close we work with the private sector, because I think there's scenarios where the private sector will take over transit when this technology really becomes available. And so it's how do we work to be, if nothing else, the retailer, or to be a partner or work with, versus letting the private sector literally overtake this mode of transportation in the future? That would be my question.
I think that's really what we're exploring in phase 2. And as I mentioned, the meetings with Sandag and the meetings with stakeholders, including, our transit operators. I think, who operates the transit, particularly in the managed lane corridors, is to be determined. And that's going to be need to happen based on, those discussions with the transit operators as the technology advances. I think that's a question that we all need to answer together, who operates it.
And just a follow-up question. Obviously, we're discussing this today, and I'm not sure if this is 2, 5, 10, or 15 years out, but we realize it's coming, and it's how we, I think, build the consensus or the collaboration with the technology is absolutely critical. If not, I can see the scenario where the private sector will really take this over.
Mayor Hall, if I could just respond to that. I don't know if you recall, but we had established an industry group called our Vision Advisory Panel when we were putting together the regional plan, so we could start to have those kinds of conversations about how we work together with the private sector collaboratively, and we, achieve the region's goals together. So very much thinking about what you're thinking about, and definitely something that we're working on, and we'll talk more about over the coming months with this project in particular. If there are no other questions from members, I can take us into the next item, Chair.
Yes, please.
Okay. So next up, we have the Equity Baseline Study. That is a near-term action under the priority area related to developing a social equity planning framework. Stacy Cooper joined Sandag recently as a planner in our Sustainable Communities program, and it's a pleasure to introduce Stacy to you today. She's also the newly appointed coordinator for the Regional Planning Committee, so you'll get to know her well. Stacy, are you ready?
Ready. Thanks, Antoinette. Good morning, members. Next slide, please. The Social Equity Baseline Report examines equity in the San Diego region through the context of race and ethnicity. The report will inform the Equity Action Plan and steer the agency forward in addressing past planning practices that divided and marginalized communities. The report looks at 25 indicators grouped into 4 categories, but today we'll just touch on some of those. Next slide, please. Who calls San Diego home? Over 3.3 million people live in San Diego County, and the region is home to 18 federally recognized tribal nations, the most of any county in the US. As you can see from the chart, looking through the lens of race only does not accurately represent the diversity in the region. Hispanic Latino people comprise 1/3 of the population. Almost 10% of the population is disabled, meaning they have serious difficulty with hearing, vision, cognition, and/or mobility. The population age 65 plus make up 46.2% of those with a disability, yet only 13.7% of the total population. 12% of the population are limited English proficient or LEP individuals, meaning English is not their primary language for communication. They have a limited ability to read, speak, write, and/or understand English. There are over 13 languages spoken by more than 1,000 LEP individuals in the region. Next slide, please. How do San Diegans fare economically? There are notable discrepancies within the economic vitality category. Asians and white non-Hispanics have the highest median income and the highest percent of the population with a bachelor's degree or higher. Black, Native American, and Hispanic Latino populations have the lowest median household income, earning $19,000 less than the region's median income. The Black population also experiences the highest unemployment rate, which at 10% is over double that of white non-Hispanics and Asians. But even having a full-time job might not be enough to pull people from poverty. The 3 groups with the lowest median household income, Black, Native American, and Hispanic Latinos, are also those with the highest percentage of working poor. Next slide, please. Homeownership has been marketed as the cornerstone of the American lifestyle, as a source of both individual wealth building and community stability. However, decades of discrimination in housing and mortgage markets have limited Black and Hispanic households from becoming homeowners, contributing to persistent wealth gaps. In the San Diego region, Black households have the lowest rate of homeownership at just 30%. In addition to large disparities in the rate of homeownership between ethnic racial groups, there's also a significant difference in their median home values. For example, the median value of a Black or Hispanic Latino owned home is only about 80% of the region's median home value. Households across the country are dealing with affordability issues. A household is considered cost burden when they pay more than 30% of their income on mortgage or rent. Nearly 40% of homeowners and more than 50% 55% of renters in the region are cost burdened. Black and Latino and Hispanic Latinos have the highest percentage of cost burdened households. Next slide, please. How does our environment impact the health of San Diegans? One of the most apparent environmental costs of transportation is pollution exposure, which is linked to negative health outcomes. Hispanic, Latino, and Black people disproportionately reside in the region's highest population burden communities and have the highest asthma hospitalization rates. The rate for the Black population is more than double the regional rate. An overcrowded unit is one that is occupied by 1.01 people or more per room. The root of overcrowding could be related to housing affordability or culture, but in any case, the magnitude of COVID-19 has shown the impact of overcrowding on health outcomes. 7% of all households in the San Diego region are overcrowded. Hispanic Latino households are among the most overcrowded at 15%. Next slide, please. Who has access to opportunities in the region? Census tracts that experience a poverty rate of 30% or higher are known as high poverty neighborhoods. People in high poverty neighborhoods have less access to jobs, services, high quality education, parks, safe streets, and other components of success. The percent of Black households that live in high poverty neighborhoods is almost double the rate for the region and close to 4 times that of their white non-Hispanic peers. Additionally, over 11% of Black households do not have access to a car compared to less than 5% of white non-Hispanic households. Households without a car rely more on public transportation for their mobility needs. Approximately 80% of workers who take public transportation make less than $50,000 a year. Over 40% of workers who take public transportation are Hispanic, and over 45% of those who drive alone are white non-Hispanic. The mean travel time for workers who take public transportation is over 20 minutes longer than for those who carpool, 48.3 versus 27.9 minutes. Additionally, over 39% of public transit users travel for at least an hour. There's a significant disparity in the travel times between those who take public transportation and those who drive. Next slide, please. The draft report identifies significant disparities between racial and ethnic groups in the region across all of the report's themes. We're looking at some of the indicators at the jurisdiction level as well as part of next steps. And when we presented the preliminary data findings to the Social Equity Working Group, they were disheartened by the disparities in the data, but appreciate the progress being made by SANDAG towards its commitment to equity. We're also looking at the availability of data to address suggestions made by the Social Equity Working Group, such as the region's Asian population based on origin instead of a collective racial group, and including data about the estimated 100,000 binational community members who live in Mexico but work or attend school in San Diego. We anticipate the draft report will be released later this summer, and that concludes my report, and I can take any technical questions.
Member Hall, do you have a technical question, or is it your hand up from the last question, session? Probably from the
last one. I'm sorry, I'll take it. I'm sorry.
Don't need to apologize, it's all good. All right, any other members with technical questions? If not, we can go ahead and continue. And thank you for that very thorough report. Looking forward to the draft report this late summer.
All right, we've made it to the last presentation, and this is on our work to stand up a safety program and develop a Vision Zero strategy. So Vision Zero is a near-term action under the priority area that's focused on updating SANDAG policies. But in addition to the regional plan, expanding safety planning and programming has been a recommendation in the last 2 Transnet triennial audits. So we've been working closely with the ITAC on this subject. Sam Sanford and Marissa Mangan will present this item, and they will be asking both the Transportation Committee and the Regional Planning Committee to make a recommendation to the board to adopt a Vision Zero resolution at their meeting next week. This resolution will help us to be competitive in a new federal grant program called Safe Streets for All. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Sam and Marissa to talk about our Vision Zero efforts.
Thank you, Antoinette, and good morning, everyone. So this is the 6th and final section of this report, and as Antoinette mentioned, focuses on transportation safety. And just as a reminder, item 3F is an action item requesting a recommendation to the board for the adoption of resolution 2023-2 to develop a Vision Zero action plan, regional safety policy, and safety dashboard. Next slide, please. Vision Zero gets its name from the explicit goal of zero traffic fatalities and severe injuries. Vision Zero is a comprehensive strategy to eliminate fatal and severe crashes for all modes. It addresses the traditional ease of safety, engineering, education, enforcement, and expands to include equity, emergency services, emergent technology, and much more. So Vision Zero is a multidisciplinary approach, bringing together diverse and necessary stakeholders to address this complex problem of traffic safety. Next slide, please. Vision Zero is a nationwide initiative modeled off worldwide practices. Across the United States, there are more than 50 communities that have committed to Vision Zero with a goal, public commitment, plan or strategy, timeframe or other resources. These include our very own city of La Mesa and San Diego, and others like the city of Encinitas actively working on Vision Zero initiatives. The Caltrans Director Policy 36 also includes a vision of zero road fatalities and serious injuries by 2050. And the US Department of Transportation has in its National Roadway Safety Strategy an acknowledgement that zero is the only acceptable number of deaths and serious injuries on our public roadways. Next slide, please. One of the main tenets of Vision Zero is that it rejects the idea as crashes are inevitable. These can be prevented. Vision Zero also recognizes that people will sometimes make mistakes. We are human. So the road system and the related policies should be designed to ensure that those inevitable mistakes do not result in severe injuries or fatalities. Next slide, please. So why Vision Zero and how is this in our region? Within the San Diego region, on average, 230 people lose their life each year on our public roads. An additional 1,400 individuals suffer life-altering injuries or severe injuries due to a traffic crash. Unfortunately, these statistics are trending in the wrong direction and continue to grow. Looking broader at a national scale, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, or NHTSA, estimates that over 42,000 people died in traffic crashes in 2020. To put that in perspective, this would be the equivalent of 2 jumbo jets crashing every week for an entire year. Next slide, please. So now turning to some background on safety coordination, and specifically with the Independent Taxpayers Oversight Committee, or ITOC, which has really helped advance safety. As Antoinette mentioned, the 2 most recent Transnet triennial performance audits had recommendations for additional safety monitoring, analysis, and planning coordination. For this past fiscal year, ITOC established a subcommittee on regional safety to help address these recommendations and requested from staff an initial report on best practices at other metropolitan planning organizations like SANDAG, which is linked in today's staff report. One of these best practices that we found in our research was the adoption of a safety or Vision Zero resolution. And more recently in June, ITOC recommended that the Board of Directors pursue a comprehensive safety program and allocation of resources to support this effort. I'll now turn this over to my colleague Marissa Mangan for more on the best practices and recommended approach.
Thank you, Sam. At the request of the ITOC, staff developed a best practices report for regional safety programs based on interviews conducted with 5 metropolitan planning organizations and a program review of 11 more. We found that safety planning is a very common role for MPOs to fulfill with varying levels of involvement. Common safety elements of these programs include centrally managed safety data, a regional transportation network analyses, formation of a task force to discuss and coordinate safety programs, prioritization of equity, and the development of Vision Zero policies and action plan. Thanks for the slide. Both the ITOC and the Social Equity Working Group support pursuit of a comprehensive safety program based on these best practices. Next slide, please. Staff have outlined a 3-pronged approach for initiating Vision Zero implementation efforts. First is the creation of a regional safety database to inform Vision Zero planning and policy development while carrying out vital safety analyses and monitoring. As you all know from the 2021 regional plan development process, data is key to informing how we look at past and current trends to improve quality of life conditions for the future. Next is the development of a regional Vision Zero action plan. Over the course of the next 18 months, staff will draft a plan that defines a high injury network for the region to capture where the highest proportion of fatalities and serious injuries are occurring. The action plan will also include proven roadway safety strategies that align with the federal level safe system approach to roadway design and use. This includes accounting for safer people, more responsible behavior on our roads, safer roads through better design, safer speeds for everyone traveling on our roads, and safer vehicles that are using our roads. Last and certainly not least, we'll tailor a variety of regional safety policy considerations that align with the action plan and data dashboard while building upon national and international best practices, as Sam was describing. It's also an opportunity to establish clear safety objectives to assist our local partner agencies in achieving their own safety outcomes. It's really important to note that a regional approach does not replace the need for local agencies to continue their own safety planning. This approach will supply a framework to guide consistency across city boundaries, including when it comes to supporting state and federal level policymaking. Next slide, please. Staff have already initiated work on developing a safety data dashboard, leveraging statewide collision data. Augmented with advanced filters and analysis capabilities, the dashboard will serve as the basis for informing Vision Zero action plan development and implementation, while enabling local jurisdictions to improve upon their own local roadway safety efforts. The effort will also provide a common and consistent data source for the entire region to help monitor and track roadway safety progress while identifying any challenging areas. It'll also allow for the integration of additional or newer data sets to help strengthen our analysis capabilities. And a geographic visualization component will also be added to help tell the compelling story of how roadway crashes are really impacting our local communities each and every day. Next slide, please. As far as next steps, staff is requesting the adoption of a Vision Zero resolution to formalize our commitment to prioritize transportation safety and initiate work in this area of regional plan implementation. Adoption of a resolution positions Sandag to be competitive for new funding opportunities, like Antoinette mentioned, for safety by demonstrating our region's coordinated approach to implementing Vision Zero interventions. The resolution is provided as attachment 1 to item 3 of your staff report today. Staff immediately intends to apply for federal funding this fall to support Vision Zero action planning through a new discretionary grant program known as Safe Streets and Roads for All. Should Sandag be successful in obtaining these grant funds, it'll enable any of our local jurisdictions and tribes to apply for Vision Zero implementation dollars in future funding cycles. We'll also be forming a safety task force to support regional safety planning efforts while continuing to coordinate with our local jurisdictions and transit agencies and tribes on the safety data dashboard so they can use it to inform local safety decision-making. Next slide, please. So given this update on our Vision Zero implementation efforts, both the Transportation and Regional Planning Committees are asked to recommend that the Board of Directors adopt Vision Zero Resolution 2023-2 at their next meeting on Friday, July 22nd. And that concludes our presentation on this item.
Thank you very much. For the technical questions for this particular item, I have a question on this. And I'm happy to support it, so what happens particularly around the Bayshore Parkway and issue? I know there's going to be a timely process, right, for this to take place, and I understand. How do we make sure that where we know there are incidents taking place that there are safety needs, that gets prioritized, so that we're not waiting 18 months for a plan to take place?
Right. Could we ask Sharon Humphreys to get on regarding construction efforts for?
Yeah,
and maybe some sort of supplement, I understand that there's a bigger plan, but how would we be able to align that?
Yeah, we're going to come back at your request and talk about how to address the safety issues immediately on Barrio Logan. We certainly wouldn't want to wait for any immediate safety concerns to be addressed. The larger strategy will be, longer term, but in the near term, we want to address any issues that come up.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Any other technical questions before I move on to public comments? All right, seeing none. Ms. Webb, are there any other public comments on these? Are there any public comments on any of these items?
Thank you, Chair. I do see two hands from the public. First is Alex Wong, who will be followed by Nicole Burgess. Alex, you can go ahead when you're ready.
Yes, the Youth Opportunity Pass may have increased ridership so far. Still, the program raises more questions than it answers. Will it permanently increase ridership? Is this youth ridership increase a drop in the bucket compared to the trolley's strong ridership recovery among all age groups that began long before the Youth Opportunity Pass? And would the $6 million per year spent on youth passes have increased ridership dramatically across all age groups instead of only on youth passes? Sandag's 2050 Regional Transportation Plan proposes to make transit free for all by 2031, 44 years before the Midcoast and Green Line frequencies will be increased by 2035. This is a problem of misplaced priorities. $35 million annually to make transit free for everyone under 24 is a huge operating cost. By comparison, MTA's successful program to double off-peak Blue Line frequencies costs only $5.7 million. Now imagine saving $35 million per year to increase frequencies once the COVID-induced driver shortage subsides instead of on free youth passes. That could double Midcoast and Green Line frequencies. That would attract not just youth or low-income riders, but riders from every demographic. Seniors, middle-aged commuters, the disabled, and more affluent choice riders, all of whom would benefit from increased frequencies. Frequency is not just crucial for ridership and fare box recovery. It's also crucial for promoting transit-oriented development. Massive TOD, transit-oriented development building booms are coming to University City, Mission Valley, meaning that the Midcoast and Green Line corridors will explode in travel demand. Whether these residents drive, further clogging up the I-5, I-8, and Friars Road, or take transit instead, hinges entirely on Midcoast and Green Line frequencies. Currently, both lines have 15-minute peak hour frequencies. It's inconvenient. Mission Valley alone will add almost 50,000 new residents by 2050, mostly along the Green Line. You will have tons of people taking short 10, 15-minute trips to and from work, school, home appointments, and shopping at SDSU, Grantsville, SDSU, Mission Valley, Riverwalk, Navor redevelopment, the airport, and Fashion Valley, and the Green Line connects them all. But no one's going to wait 15 minutes just to take a 10-minute trip across Mission Valley. It doesn't matter if the trolley is free. Waiting 15 minutes is just too inconvenient, so they'll drive instead, clogging up already congested Friars Road. In anticipation of the high demand for more car trips, developers will build excessive parking even in areas with zero parking minimums and will build developments far below the allowed density. This has already happened in Mid-City. To quote transit analyst Alan Levy, developers built more parking than the required minimum at University and 30th because the public transit option there is a north-south bus that comes every 15 minutes and an east-west bus that comes every 10, which is not actually enough to persuade people who can thus afford a car not to drive one. Doubling Green Line frequencies from 15 to 7.5 minutes is thus crucial. Thank you.
Thank you. Next will be Nicole Burgess, who will be followed by Jesse O'Sullivan.
Good morning, Transportation Board and Regional Planning Committee, and Chair Nora Vargas. Thank you for the time to comment. A lot of great work being done by staff. I just want to give a big applause to all of the staff that presented here and the 6 big programs that are highlighted here, and really the great work that's being done. I want to give a big shout out to Vision Zero. Adoption of a safety plan is critical, important. And then how we implement it, as City of San Diego has had a Vision Zero plan for the last 6-7 years. It is all about, a lot of it is street design. So our cities can be very proactive and learn a lot if Sandag can take the lead to really create safe streets for all. So thank you both Sam and Marissa for that presentation. I also just want to thank the leaders here, Raul Campillo, Sean Ilo Rivera, council members. Thank you for your voice for this issue. Safety on our roadways. It is actually amazing how fast the traffic is going these days, and these big wide streets have a lot of opportunity for us to reallocate space. So specifically, I wanted to just tap into, you have a lot of great programs, but I wanted to tap into number one, regional plan implementation. It was kind of quickly done, and Antoinette, I appreciate all the work you're doing with these, specifically CMCPs, complete corridors. So I'm a super big fan of complete corridors because we're going to address multimodal in all levels. Unfortunately, the city's San Diego bike plan and Sandag's bike network is super outdated, and we just don't have the consultants that are doing the fine work that is being done as far as like Transit Leap. You know, like our agency is still so very car-centric focused, and I appreciate that. I think there's some innovative technologies to work with that, but the CMCPs are really not addressing the safe routes to schools and how we integrate all those programs that we talked about, flexible fleets and healthy options and human activity, mobilely getting to your location within the first last mile. So I think that's super important. And I'll just address number 9. I actually liked number 9, low carbon transportation options. These are low cost investments to get people being healthier and active and more mobile and empower them and lead them. So again, a big shout out to Shanilo Rivera for being that type of leader. But number 9 also talks about nature-based climate solutions. So as a member of Groundwork San Diego and looking at the Chollas Creek Coalition and that Chollas Creek alignment, there are some great opportunities for Sandag to support this alignment and bring in some of those green infrastructure into completing a mobility for all. Thank you for the time to make my comments. There's a lot going on, and I appreciate all the work that's going on. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Jesse O'Sullivan, who will be followed by Anar.
Good morning. My name is Jesse O'Sullivan. I'm Policy Counsel with Circulate San Diego. We're a local nonprofit whose mission is to create excellent mobility choices and vibrant, healthy neighborhoods. First of all, I want to say I'm really excited to see that Sandag is developing a Vision Zero plan. Vision Zero has been a top priority of Circulate San Diego for many years, and we're excited to see it spreading farther around the county. We do have some concerns about how this plan is planning to be implemented. So in particular, Circulate wants to make sure that the funds that are available through federal dollars or wherever are being used in a way that supports local jurisdictions in making their own safety plans and implementing those plans. And part of the reason for this is the experience that we've had with the bike program, where Sandag will make a plan, and then that plan will be presented to a city, and the city will want to see something different. And so we end up with this sort of double planning process where Sandag makes one plan, a city wants something different, and now that plan has to be reworked based on what the city wants. And what Circulate would like to see is for the cities to make plans that are quickly implementable so that we don't have that double planning process, so that we can build the infrastructure that saves lives as quickly as possible. We also think that it's important for creating buy-in with the local cities. If Sandag just makes this plan and cities don't feel like they're involved in the process, they're not going to be interested in actually implementing that plan, which is what's going to actually save lives. Another piece that I wanted to make sure was in this plan is that in the presentation and in the resolution, I haven't seen a lot of focus on the most vulnerable road users, who are pedestrians and bicyclists. And it's great to prioritize, it's great to have safety for everybody, but it's important to prioritize those modes because they are the most vulnerable road users, and because in order to meet the climate goals of the region, we need to increase those use of those modes. So again, I want to thank staff for coming forward with a Vision Zero plan. I'm excited about it. I just want to make sure that we're spending money in a way that's most likely to create actual infrastructure as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Anar, who will be followed by Will Radigan, and will be, oh, I apologize. I was going to say Will be our final speaker, but after that I see Eduardo Cabrera, who will be our final speaker. So Will, you can go ahead when you're ready. Oh, I'm sorry, Anar, you can go ahead.
No worries. Hey, good morning, Chair Vargas and members of the committee. My name is Anar Salayev, and I am on Bike San Diego's board. I want to add to the comments made at the beginning of this meeting regarding the Barrio Logan section of the Bayshore Bikeway. So I, like most people that called in, am very excited about this project and I look forward to its opening. Though it's unfortunate that already in its infancy, this otherwise exciting project is already tainted with tragedy. This narrative is super common in San Diego, where the cost of delay and our unwillingness to act proactively is measured in human lives. As with Pershing, where it took multiple deaths for the city to make necessary improvements, so too here, a detour bike route was put in too late. Nonetheless, we do appreciate that this detour was eventually created, where bicyclists are now directed onto Main, a road parallel to Harbor Drive, to get to where they need to go. I asked this committee for two things. One, publicize this detour ASAP, post it across your social media channels. And as part of Bike SD, I promise to help further amplify this message so that those commuters that are directly impacted by this construction are aware of the available detour. Second, I hope that this agency, SANDAG, and the city together can place more urgency on creating detours in future construction project sites. Section 6015 in the White Book requires that any construction impeding a bike path be supplemented with a detour bike path, lane, or route with appropriate signage. And this is a requirement for a development project to receive a development permit. I ask that this permit provision requirement be extended to bike lane and sidewalk construction sites as well, so that when those bike lanes or sidewalks are impeded by construction work, there be appropriate signage and a safe, protected path for bicyclists and pedestrians who need to get through that construction site. Again, I'm very grateful for this project overall, which will pay dividends for years to come. However, we should not continue to allow today's citizens to act as martyrs for the safety of future generations. Thank you.
Thank you. And our next speaker will be Will Radigan, followed by Eduardo Cabrera. Will, you can go ahead. Will, you are self-muted at the moment, so if you can go ahead and open up your mic, you can begin.
Thank you. And good morning. This is Will Radigan, speaking on behalf of the San Diego County Bicycle Coalition. I want to thank Chair Vargas, Council President Elo Rivera, and Council Member Raul Campillo for advocating for a temporary protected bikeway along the Barrio Logan section of Harbor Drive earlier in this meeting. We have known that that Harbor Drive through Barrio Logan is an extremely dangerous road for cyclists and pedestrians for years. As was said earlier, 4 people were seriously killed or injured along that stretch of roadway between 2014 and 2021, and a 5th was killed just 3 weeks ago. Unless safety improvements are made soon, it is likely we will see a 6th victim before the end of construction. And while we do appreciate the bike detour around the active construction zone between 28th Street and Cesar Chavez Parkway, it does not address the underlying issue that all of Harbor Drive between 32nd Street and Park Boulevard has been extremely dangerous for cyclists and pedestrians for decades. We need more than just that simple bike detour route. We do need a temporary protected bikeway along the entire stretch of road, because regardless of construction, that stretch of road will remain dangerous until the final project is completed. So I also want to support the comment Jesse O'Sullivan made earlier in this meeting, emphasizing that although SANDAG's Vision Zero resolution is an important step in the right direction, it's important it contains an encouragement for cities to develop their own plans, and also that it has a particular emphasis on our most vulnerable road users, who are bicyclists and pedestrians. While it's true that fatalities have been increasing across the board nationwide on our roads, it's important to note that the majority of that increase has been cyclists and pedestrians who have been directly impacted by the huge increase in vehicle height and weight that has happened over the last 5 years, which has made them dramatically more lethal. So I thank you again for all your great work on this Vision Zero project. I thank our elected leaders for their leadership on this, and I encourage you to act both in the particular case of Harbor Drive and to design this Vision Zero resolution to prioritize vulnerable road users across the county. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And our final speaker will be Eduardo Cabrera. You can go ahead with your comments when you're ready.
Good morning to everyone. I would just want to present myself. I'm Eduardo Cabrera, an entrepreneur and transportation engineering consultant. I just want to congratulate the Transportation Committee, Chair Vargas, for their magnificent work of this group of stakeholders. I think that you're doing a terrific job here with the trolley blue line and all the State Route 11. So we are doing a great job here. I have just one question I think I missed from Brian Lane. I don't know if there is any stats or public data to access for the Pronto platform and Pronto solutions regarding on the volumes of commuters in the different transportation infrastructure that we have operated by Pronto. That's my only question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Seeing that there are no other public comments, before I turn it over to member comments, did we have any other member comments?
Chair, I do see that Councilmember Green has his hand raised, his Zoom hand.
Oh yeah, no, but I'm talking about public comments.
Oh, my apologies. No, we do not have any other public.
All right, give me 1 minute. Okay, so before I go to any member comments, I just want to say thank you first to staff for bringing this item forward. I know there was a lot of information that was presented today, but I think it's really important as we're hearing the series of presentations that we've made a lot of investments for the region with our regional plan. I really appreciate the information and the highlight of the near-term action SANDAG is going to take to implement the plan in the next 4 years. For me, particularly seeing the data for our youth opportunity passes in the month of May is not only eye-opening and impressive, but I think we're seeing and hearing firsthand the impact that this investment is having for our youth in the region, especially with our working families. This pilot program has demonstrated great success in the few months it has been active. And as we continue in identifying long-term funding for our permanent Youth Opportunity Press program, I think it's extremely important to prioritize the expansion of youth transit passes to include youth 24 and under. I think I've mentioned this before, but as a past trustee for Southwestern College, I worked directly with youth 24 and under and saw firsthand the need for transportation investments. And so I want to make sure we emphasize that our youth deserve to be prioritized in our region, especially because this is the opportunity to remove the financial burden for our youth and to create long life transit riders. This is not about choosing no-cost transportation over service frequency enhancement, as it has been mentioned, but there is a need for this agency to invest in both in order to have a successful transit system for our riders long-term. At the County of San Diego, both our Health and Human Services agencies and Land Use Environmental Group are actively looking for funding opportunities so that we can go after, that we can do this with SANDAG to secure expansion for 24 and under and a permanent program. So I just want to make sure that I emphasize that. And I also want to thank you for the update on Flexible Fleet. This is a very important project to get more riders to have a choice in how we get around our region. As we continue this conversation, we need to make sure we are also including our taxi industry in the planning and shaping of these investments. I think it's really the innovative concepts that you're presenting, that you brought forward, sustainability, the binational investment in our transportation region, the importance to prioritize EV, microgrids and solar in our transit centers is going to support the sustainability goals that we have in our region. There's a lot happening at CARB too, so I think this is all very much connected, but the binational project looking to the possible extension of the Blue Line trolley 1 mile into Tijuana and the expansion of the San Isidro Transit Center are the concepts that should be elevated for the investment to bring forward a binational transit solution. And I will tell you, and just bear with me for a minute, but I remember being a staffer for the local congressman when people thought that the CBX that we have now, people thought it was a crazy idea 20 years ago when I was a staffer, and look at where it's now. And if you've ever used it, you know that it's a wonderful, wonderful investment and that people use it, and it's one of the best things that we've ever done. So the San Isidro is the busiest port of entry and deserves those overdue investments. So again, I want to thank you for bringing forward the Vision Zero resolution. This action is important for SANDAG and for our county to elevate the urgency of addressing traffic fatalities and serve injuries in our roads. And I want to thank SANDAG staff for Vice Chair Campillo on our Transportation Committee and our board member Sean Nilo for also addressing the issue for the harbor as well, so that we can have an update. So again, thank you for all the presentations for our joint committee meeting. And I do want to make the motion for the Transportation Committee on item number 3F on that one. And then now I'm going to go ahead and open up to member comments. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to my vice chair, member Campillo.
Thank you, Chair, very much. Very happy to second your motion. And thank you very much, SANDAG staff, for the multiple presentations. Very expansive and really exciting to see where we're going to go here. First, just want to talk about the Youth Opportunity Pass. The expansion of this pilot program lives up to the name of actually providing opportunities to youth. And it's a first step towards more accessible and equity in public transit for everyone, regardless of where they live and their age. And I'm encouraged that the data that we saw presented today is showing great success and further pointing to why we ought to move forward and make programs like this permanent. And so I'm glad to see SANDAG working with NCTD and MTS to find that permanent funding and increase the age threshold to 24 years old. I've been an advocate of seeing it raised to 24 years old because this means that many college students across our region will have the access to fair and equitable transit opportunities. 2 of our region's major universities are already located along the trolley lines, and a third, USD, is just less than a mile up the hill from another one. And for all the bus lines that go past and near community colleges, it's very important for working class families to see just this little bit of help from us, which goes a long way for them. And even further, as we start to implement San Diego Forward and build out mobility hubs and connections across the region, more and more of our youth, including college students, will have better access to transit. And while I agree with the caller who advocated for more frequency in trolleys to lower the average time that individuals have to wait for a trolley, my mindset is that the increased number of college students and young workers who are going to take advantage of an expanded Youth Opportunity Pass is actually going to create the cultural change that we need to see for long-term mode share shift. And that is what I think is the critical step to see us reach our cities and regional climate action plan goals. It's not just about making traffic move faster, it's about instilling in the citizenry the belief that public transit is a social good that we ought to prioritize, and it's not just a personal benefit. And in that way, we will show people that what's good for everyone is good for their own pocketbook if we invest in it now. So I'm in strong support of this program today and solidifying this as a permanent and expanded feature. As it relates to the innovative concepts, I really want to say how exciting the idea from Cordoba is to see a company like them prioritizing the importance of our binational region. Cross-border travel is essential for our 2 national economies and our people, which is really one interconnected community. I really love that idea, and I want to see us take advantage of that type of idea. I know we have to work with federal partners, state, local, on both sides of the border, but I would love to see more on that and actually see that come to fruition. And lastly, Vision Zero, I can't express enough my thanks to the public for calling in to advocate for safer streets. It's deeply important to my constituents that they see that their children can move across the city and county safely. So I want to thank those callers for all their hard work. And that concludes my second. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Let's see, my colleague Supervisor Joe Anderson, and then I know member Sankey wanted to speak as well. I can't, his hand wasn't working. Anyway, his hand is working, but not the little hand over there. So Supervisor Anderson.
Hey, thank you so much, Nora. I appreciate it. You know, the youth program, the passes are working out so well, but it is brought great light to some areas of the county that it's failed. And we don't see the increase of usage because the frequency of the buses, the frequency of the transportation are not sufficient to support the community. And recently I wrote a letter to both to the NTC, to SANDAG, and a third agency, I forgot who, maybe it was Caltrans. And I talked about what Ramona had put together. And if you look at their presentation, it's really quite remarkable. And I would just impress on everybody that we all have to finish across the finish line together. And that means that some communities can't be left behind. In Ramona and some of the more rural areas, they deserve the same access and the same opportunities is people in the inner city. So that's my only point, and thank you for moving such a great meeting when we got such a slow start. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Member Saki and then Member Elo Rivera.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, I want to salute all the public comments we got on this particular item. Several reports that are very interesting, that elicited very interesting public comments, and I hope staff listen very carefully. Secondly, I think for us as community members, and I think for the public at large, to see the broad range of things that SANDAG is working on, I think lets them know that as a regional agency, we're focused on moving people efficiently and effectively and safely and with equity, but also we're doing that at a very granular level, and seeing these planning efforts go forward really is a salute to Hassan and the team. It's very great to bring it out. I'll be supportive of the motion on the Vision Zero, but I would share that if there's a possibility to include a jurisdictional conflict approach to this, because we've struggled with getting Safe Routes to School instituted in Coronado, fighting the state, basically siding with the Navy on improvements to 3rd and 4th Street that access the base, that the base feels might be intrusive to their folks getting to and from the base. And Coronado has no interest in making it harder for the military to get to and from their installations. In fact, we support it wholeheartedly. However, sometimes we're finding problems with perhaps a raised sidewalk with a rapid flashing beacon, setting off alarm bells for the military, thinking that we're trying to slow things down for them, and that's not the case at all. So if this Vision Zero approach becomes regional instead of citywide, and then that regional approach includes language that says jurisdictions should work together for the safety of all, I would be really pleased for the thing as a whole, particularly other communities like National City that are also affected by military bases and might see that same sort of state siding with the Navy versus a local jurisdictions that are trying to do something to increase safety in its community. So that would be my only encouragement as that Vision Zero program comes forward. Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to comment.
Member Elo Rivera.
Thank you, Chair. I want to make sure that I'm doing this in a procedurally correct way. It's fine for me as a regional plan committee member to comment now and then make a motion on item 3F for the regional side.
Unless they say, go ahead, Council.
Oh, Chair Vargas, yes, that is correct. We are seeking a motion and a second from both committees. As of right now, we have a motion and a second for TC. We do not have a motion on the table for RPC. So any primary member of RPC or an alternate in the place of the primary is welcome to do that.
So there you go, Sean, it's yours.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to make sure we were doing this correctly. First, thanks for the.
Are you making a motion?
What was that?
Are you making a motion?
We'll make the motion. Yeah, I was going to comment on the other items and then make that motion. Yeah. I just want to say thank you for all the reports there. I think what's really exciting about this meeting together is, you know, the various folks that are advocating in a similar direction, and we don't always get a chance to talk to each other about these things. So in my role at MTS, I see, you know, some of the advocacy that's gone on and the tipping point that we've reached in support of a program like Youth Opportunity Passes. It's super exciting. So, you know, to see MTS as a board get across the line and reach that tipping point, the work that you've done, Chair Vargas, on the Sandag and County side to ensure that work is done, hearing Councilmember Campillo now, it's just a really exciting thing to see the momentum grow. I spent some time with Chavistas last Friday, and when the mayor entered the conversation, they had some questions, and the first 5 were all about youth opportunity passes and wanting to make sure that they and their siblings would be able to access transit, and they understood why it was so important. It's so that they can get to and from the things that they need and want to do, and they understood the climate impacts as well. And these were elementary and middle school students. They got it. They were extremely persistent about their desire to see this program continue and expand over the years. And I'm very glad but not surprised that data supports what I think many of us were saying for a long time, which is that this is not only really important, but it would also work very well. with that, I know that we've got a lot of folks here. I did want to make a motion in support of the Vision Zero, the Vision Zero resolution. I did, however, have a minor amendment that I wanted to offer. And it is in response to what we've heard from the community members, but also what I think we know is important based on the conversation we've had here today. And so if as part of my motion, I can include an additional whereas, and I'll read it slowly. And it would be, whereas it is critical for our local jurisdictions to prioritize individual Vision Zero plans to build complete streets and begin to ensure the safety of our pedestrians, cyclists, and all road users of all ages and abilities. That would be the additional language I'd like to add to my motion. Simply because I think it's really important that we are explicit about who we are trying to ensure safety for. The goals of Vision Zero are obviously super, super important. And we need to make sure that we are naming the folks who are most vulnerable when they're on our roads. And that would be based on the data, pedestrians and cyclists. So with that, Chair, that is, there's the motion that I have as a member of the Regional Planning Committee, and hope that one of my colleagues on that committee will second.
I can second it if nobody else in your committee.
No, that's for the Regional Planning Commission, so I'll be glad to second it.
Yeah, I'm an alternate on that one too, so I can either. So yeah, but I'll go ahead and let you do them, Mayor. And then what I'll do is I'll adopt it on mine. And if my colleague, the Vice Chair of, where is he? Can't see him.
Absolutely, yes, Chair. I agree.
So we'll go ahead and adopt it on ours as well. So, all right, Member Moreno.
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation. I have comments on two of the items. On item 3B, the Youth Opportunity Pass Program and Regional Transit Fare Impact Study. First and foremost, I want to thank Brian Lane for this presentation and for all of your work on this Youth Opportunity Pass pilot program. Brian's presentations at the Social Equity Group were always informative and well received, so thank you for that. I also want to thank the people responsible for pushing this pilot program forward. All of the members of the Social Equity Working Group who pushed so hard for this pilot program as part of the Equity Early Action Plan, and to SANDAG's leadership, including Hassan and Colleen, and the entire board of directors for listening to the Social Equity Working Group and turning their request into an actual pilot program. As I've said before, it would have been easy for SANDAG to do nothing on youth opportunity passes and simply pass the buck to the transit agencies. But instead, SANDAG leaned in. It leaned into its regional leadership role and made this program a reality. The results so far are very encouraging. A 75% increase in individual youth riders in May is a huge and immediate result. And why is this ridership important? If you recall, the pandemic simply destroyed transit ridership across the country. Locally, MTS ridership fell to less than half of the pre-pandemic level. There was a real risk that our transit agency would enter what is called the transit death spiral, where declining ridership causes reduced revenue and cuts to service, which causes ridership to fall further along with revenue and service levels. Because of the federal support, MTS and NCTD were able to maintain service levels in the short and medium term. But without improving ridership, the death spiral will return to us again the minute the federal funding runs out. At my suggestion, MTS developed a ridership recovery action plan that coincides with the Pronto rollout and includes the free rides in September promotion. This was last year. There was a spike in ridership in September, and ridership remains higher. Ridership remained higher in October and November, even after the promotion ended. But youth opportunity passes are the single greatest tool we have to invest in ridership in the long term. If young people get used to riding transit now, when they age out of the opportunity passes, they will most likely continue to use transit as paying customers. So I want to thank Sandag staff for their big push on this program. My next comment is on item 3F, the Vision Zero. Once again, thank you for the presentation. I am a strong supporter of Vision Zero. Over the last few months alone, several pedestrians and cyclists in neighborhoods in District 8 have tragically lost their lives after being hit by cars. I do agree with the sentiments expressed by Circulate San Diego in the letter they sent. Sandag alone cannot establish a Vision Zero policy for the entire county. Instead, any Sandag policies must assist local jurisdictions in establishing their own policies as well. I do have a question. Will today's action be accompanied by ongoing efforts by Sandag to assist local jurisdictions in adopting their own Vision Zero policy?
Chair, if I may respond?
Yes, please.
Yes, absolutely. That is our intention, is to help local jurisdictions. When we take the resolution to the board next week, we're also going to provide you all with a resolution that you can take back to your own councils or board of supervisors to adopt if you would like. And then we intend to provide technical support moving forward.
Wonderful. Thank you. And Chair, that concludes my comments.
Thank you. Gustavo?
Thank you, Chair Vargas. I want to thank also Sandag staff and Antoinette's team for 5 great presentations in 5 very important areas. Super excited to hear about the innovative concepts, the flexible fleets, but also the progress on the transit passes as well as equity. I did want to comment a little more about the Vision Zero action plan that is proposed, the regional policy and the dashboard, and express that Caltrans is in full support of this action item, and also offer to collaborate in the development of the action plan and the regional policy. And here's why. Number one, it's fully aligned with Caltrans' goal of safety first. As Sam mentioned, it's aligned with our Director Policy 36, which actually also directs all Caltrans districts to develop a road action safety plan and a traffic safety plan that is going to ultimately also help prioritize and fund projects, safety projects. So we offer to collaborate with Sandag on the development of this action plan because half of the deaths and serious injuries that Sam mentioned happen on the state highway system. So I fully believe that working together, we can get towards Vision Zero for all of our road users, and particularly the most vulnerable ones that were identified by many board members and the public, our pedestrians, our bicyclists. So thank you, and I hope that everybody is in support of this item as well.
Thank you. Are there any other comments from members? I hope I didn't miss anybody. All right, with that, we have a motion and a second from the Transportation Committee and then we have a motion and a second from the Regional Planning Committee. And there was an amendment for both. And before I turn it over to Francesca for a vote, I did want to just emphasize that I want to thank the leadership of Sandag, and as Chair of Transportation, I just want to say thank you for all the great work. It really has been fabulous to be able to work with all of you in the last year, and for the leadership and for all the community input in every one of these initiatives. It has been really how we've been able to achieve so much. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Francesca for a vote.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to go ahead and begin with the Transportation Committee, and then we'll go to the RPC afterward. So for the San Diego Regional Airport Authority, James Sly.
Yes.
Thank you. For the City of San Diego, Councilmember Campillo.
Yes.
My apologies, I'm having some technical issues over here. Okay, for the County of San Diego, Chair Vargas.
Vargas, yes.
For East County, Councilmember Mendoza.
Yes.
For MTS, Councilmember Moreno.
Moreno, yes.
For North County Coastal, Councilmember Zito.
Zito, yes.
For North County Inland, Mayor Ritter.
Ritter, yes.
For North County Transit District, Councilmember Bhat Patel.
Yes.
For the Port of San Diego, Commissioner Naranjo.
Yes. Commissioner
Thank you.
Naranjo, yes.
Thank you. And for South County, Councilmember Sankey.
Sankey, yes.
Thank you very much. And that item does pass unanimously. Now we'll move on to the Regional Planning Committee. For the City of San Diego, Council President Elo Rivera.
Yes.
For the County of San Diego, Supervisor Vargas.
Vargas, yes.
For East County, Mayor Wells.
Yes.
For North County Coastal, Councilmember Gasterland.
Gasterland, yes.
For North County Inland, Councilmember Green.
Green, yes.
And for South County, Mayor Salas.
Yes.
Thank you very much. And that item also passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. So the next item up is an item for consent. The Regional Planning Committee only, unless there are any public comments or questions on this consent item. I'm happy to make a motion. Is there a second?
So moved.
All right, we have,
Yeah, Mayor Salas wants to take that.
No, you go ahead. You go ahead, Sean.
we have a motion and a second. Would you like to go ahead and call the roll, please?
Thank you. And this vote will be for the Regional Planning Committee only. For the City of San Diego, Council President Elo Rivera.
Yes.
For the County of San Diego, Supervisor Vargas.
Vargas, yes.
For East County, Mayor Wells.
Yes.
For North County Coastal, Councilmember Gasterland.
Yes.
For North County Inland, Councilmember Green.
Yes.
And for South County, Mayor Salas.
Yes.
Thank you very much. And that item does pass unanimously.
Thank you. The next item on number 5 is also a consent item for the Transportation Committee only. I don't see any public comments or questions.
Madam Chair, it's Bill Sankey.
Yes, sir.
A comment, don't need a report. We've talked a lot in this meeting about saving lives through transportation planning. And one of the items that I've asked for the 6 years I've been involved in this committee has been that the inclusion of the suicide barrier in the RTP. As a previous director of SANDAG told me, nothing happens unless it's in the RTP. And now I don't take anything away from the hard work that Gustavo and the folks at Caltrans have put into this. We've come very far since 2015. We've got an environmentally clear document. We've got a project initiation document earlier than that. We've got a workshop that has created a project that will save lives. Remember, over 400 people have taken their lives off the bridge, and the touch points across the region of people who survived that, their friends and loved ones. So I'm really urging the folks at SANDAG to find a way to include the suicide barrier in the next RTP amendment. I think it's missing. I think it's a vital part of transportation planning. The improvement to our network would be tangible in terms of access to the Navy base and in terms of greenhouse gas reductions. The stranded folks who sit on the bridge when the bridge is closed at least once a month for these kind of incidents would definitely qualify as a greenhouse gas emission item. So it does qualify for the important parts of not just an RTP amendment, but the regional plan. Appreciate the opportunity to address you today, and I will be supporting the motion.
Thank you. All right, so I'm happy to make a motion on this item. Is there a second?
I'll second, Chair. Thank you. And I want to thank Councilmember Sankey. Couldn't agree more. And it's a very high priority for me to see it in the next amendment as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Can you go ahead and call the roll, please?
Thank you, Chair. And I did just want to note that on item 4 and item 5, there were no hands from the public on either of those items. For item 5 and the Transportation Committee, for the San Diego Regional Airport Authority, James Sly.
Yes.
For the City of San Diego, Councilmember Campillo.
Yes.
For the County of San Diego, Chair Vargas.
Vargas, yes.
For East County, Councilmember Mendoza.
Yes.
For Metropolitan Transit System, Councilmember Moreno.
Moreno, yes.
For North County Coastal, Councilmember Zito.
Zito, yes.
For North County Inland, Mayor Ritter.
Ritter, yes.
For North County Transit District, Councilmember Bhat Patel.
Yes.
For the Port of San Diego, Commissioner Naranjo.
Yes.
And for South County, Councilmember Sankey.
With a nod to my friend Raul, yes from Sankey.
Thank you very much. And that item passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. All right, the next item is item number 6, the draft 2023 Regional Transportation Improvement Program. Sorry, that's Rocco, my dog. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Richard Radcliffe, please.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, members of the Regional Planning Committee and the Transportation Committee. This item is for an additional 2021 Regional Plan Implementation Action, which is for the implementation of the RTIP. The Regional Transportation Improvement Program, or RTIP, is developed and adopted every 2 years. The current 2021 RTIP was adopted by the SANDAG Board in February of 2021. As a quick reminder, the RTIP is the 5-year program of projects that implements the projects in the regional plan, which is the long-term planning document. This item is the biannual update of the RTIP, which covers fiscal years 2023 through 2027 and implements the 2021 Regional Transportation Plan, which extends to 2050. The set of projects included in the 2023 RTIP was developed in coordination with member agencies, Caltrans, MTS, NCTD, and other agencies that have transportation projects within the San Diego region. It includes a total of 562 projects, including 396 projects carried over from the 2021 RTIP, 35 new projects, and 131 projects listed as completed, deleted, or delayed. The Independent Taxpayer Oversight Committee, or ITOC, reviewed the list of new projects programmed with Transnet funds at its meeting on May 11th for eligibility and agreed with staff's assessment that all projects were eligible. The ITOC reviewed the draft 2023 RTIP, focusing its review on the Transnet program of projects at the July 13th meeting and had no comments. Attachment 2 on page 97 of today's agenda provides a summary of the entire program with major SANDAG and Caltrans investments organized by corridor to align with the regional vision. SANDAG and Caltrans corridor projects reflect the funding levels in the FY 2023 Capital Improvement Program approved by the board on May 27, 2022. The corridors include all projects that would make up the multimodal corridor, including highway, transit, and multimodal projects. This report shows all funding by fund type, including prior funds expended, which shows a total program of more than $18 billion. Since major projects remain in the RTIP for a long time, while they are in the final stages of plant establishment and financial closeout, we have placed these into a category for substantially completed projects, which includes SR 52, SR 76, SR 905, I-15 managed lanes, and the completed I-805 HOV segments. In addition to the corridors, this report includes categories for operations and maintenance, active transportation, local improvements, and transportation systems and demand management. To provide additional insight into how the funding is split by mode, we've also included attachment 3 on page 98 as a quick visual, which illustrates that 20% of programming is being applied to highway and multimodal facilities, and 6% is for transit. For this chart, multimodal includes HOV and managed lanes and connectors, transit priority lanes, and CMCPs. The draft quantitative emissions analyses for the draft 2023 RTIP and for the conformity redetermination for the 2021 regional plan have been conducted, and the draft results indicate that both meet the air quality conformity requirements. These results can be found in attachment 4. The investments in the 2023 RTIP make progress towards the goals established for federal performance measures for safety, pavement and bridge condition, system performance, freight and congestion mitigation and air quality, and transit asset management. The 2023 RTIP includes $1.3 billion programmed for safety projects and safety features, $497 million to help preserve, maintain, or enhance the condition of national highway system facilities, and approximately $1.4 billion in support of transit asset management targets. Based on feedback from the Social Equity Working Group, in line with the new U.S. Department of Transportation Equity Action Plan, and to fulfill a commitment made to the board, SANDAG has performed the first ever social equity analysis on the projects programmed in the 2023 RTIP. The results of this analysis confirms that the investments in the RTIP are distributed in vulnerable communities consistent with the population in those communities. These results were presented to the Social Equity Working Group on June 23rd and are outlined in Appendix G of the draft 2023 RTIP document. Pending final QA/QC of the data, staff plans to present the analysis to the board in September with the adoption of the final 2023 RTIP. Pending board approval of the release of the draft 2023 RTIP, a public hearing was tentatively scheduled for the September 2nd Transportation Committee meeting. SANDAG is required to submit the final 2023 RTIP to the state by October 1st of this year, after undergoing the necessary public review process. And is there a, oh, there it is, sorry. The Transportation Committee is asked to recommend that the Board of Directors accept the draft 2023 Regional Transportation Improvement Program, including its air quality conformity analysis and the draft air quality conformity redetermination of the revenue-constrained regional plan for distribution for a 30-day public review and comment period. That concludes my report, and I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much for that report. Are there any public comments on this item?
Thank you, Chair. We do have one public comment. Councilmember Contreras is attending today as a member of the public, and she has her hand raised. Councilmember Contreras, you can go ahead when you're ready.
Yes, thank you very much. My name is Karina Contreras, and I'm here speaking on behalf of Climate Action Campaign as their new transportation policy advocate. I want us to take a really good look at attachment 3. I was going to make a public comment at the beginning of this meeting saying the following. I appreciate the time to speak on the amazing Bayshore Bikeway project that is currently under construction. As we see the construction of this incredible Class 1 bikeway move forward, we're asking for some help for our cyclists and pedestrian community. Harbor Drive continues to be very dangerous for cyclists and pedestrians. A temporary protected bikeway along Harbor Drive in Barrio Logan is desperately needed. Please consider this request. Lives can be saved. Connectivity between two important regions can be created prior to the finalization of this project. If we act now, we implore you to hear our requests and move forward with action on this solution today. Now, I have this to say. First, thank you to the committee members for taking steps to quickly mitigate this issue. Really, what we are talking about is more funding for ATP, especially when we are looking at how to advance equity in communities of concern. The chart for 2023 RTIP program by mode all years, including prior, has ATP at 3%, and the chart for 2023 RTIP program by mode current RTIP years 2023 through 2027 has ATP at 4%. This is not enough. We need to see double-digit investment in ATP if we are truly going to have multimodal options for our community to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Many of our community members throughout the region are dependent on ATP. And when there's a lack of infrastructure, walking and biking are risky. Let's honor the folks in our community who are already reducing greenhouse gas emissions by investing much more in ATP. Please dramatically increase the funding for active transportation throughout San Diego County, especially in communities of concern. This type of investment, along with Vision Zero, will save lives. Thank you so much for the time to speak today.
Chair, that concludes the public commenters.
Thank you. Member Hall?
Yes, a question on in North County, the multimodal study. Is SANDAG and Caltrans currently working in this area and looking at major arterials along with the freeways?
Is there someone who can answer that question?
I think we're going to need to get back to you on that one, Mayor Hall, unless Sharon Humphreys is on and can respond to that. we'll follow up.
I can jump in quickly, just with a general answer. And I know that we're working on the CMCP up there, particularly on the travel shed of the State Route 78, but it also includes portions of I-5 and 76, and we are looking at multiple areas, not just the highway system. So I think the answer to your question is yes, Mayor Hall. We are looking at more than just the state highway system. We're looking at the highways, transit, and also local roads.
So you are looking at our major arterials to help carry part of the load?
I believe that we are. We can get back to you with more information. Our corridor director in charge of that CMCP can contact your office and give you more information.
Thank you.
Well, it's not just for me. I think it's something that this whole committee needs to understand, that what the direction is, and the fact that we're not completing our major or freeway corridors, and now you're going to be asking us to take a greater load on our major arterials to help offset that load. And as I started this meeting with the fairness question and how we need to maybe take a step back and think about what we give priorities to. So my next question is review with me when the next phase of I-5 from Highway 78 to Highway 76 will be done, or is in the work plan.
I don't have that information off the top of my head, but I can get that information and share it with you and with the rest of the members of the TC.
And it's not in the near future, from my understanding. So again, as I stated earlier, and I'll just make my comment right now, is that we have a work plan that's been going on for many years throughout this region, and part of that work plan included the widening of I-5 clear through 76 and the widening of 78. And so now we're not doing that. So now what you're going to ask us to do is to look at our major arterials to help carry some of that load. And so again, we can keep, pushing forward, but until we get an equitable plan, there's going to be a lot of difference on this board. And I think we're never going to get the voters to support this agency unless we can have a fairness question throughout this region. And I'll finish with that.
Thank you for your comments. Member Sankey.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. In deference to my comments from earlier, I won't repeat them, but I will echo the sentiment of Councilmember Campillo and myself in terms of including this item in an upcoming regional RTIP amendment. And my question to staff is, thank you for your great presentation, would now be a good time, this next 30-day period when this review period opens, for me to sort of rally some troops and get some, because we've got some very involved folks here in Coronado as well as regionally in this issue. Would there be an opportunity with comments received to the committee to have an opportunity to have that included in the 2023 document? Question mark.
Hi, Councilmember Sankey. This is Sue Albert from Planning and Programming Group at Sandag. We'd be happy to include that project in the RTIP when we have committed funding, but committed funding is a requirement for programming a project. And even if we were to have committed funding at this point, we can't make that and include a new project during the draft public comment period. We'd have to do it through a formal amendment after this RTIP is approved.
Okay, so the analysis and all the other parts that would go with that would be important. Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. I appreciate that. Disappointment, but again, I understand the process and appreciate the concern that hopefully the folks will continue to have for this after my time here on the committee is gone. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, I'm happy to make a motion to accept this item. And I need a second, but this is a motion only for the Transportation Committee members. And so I need a Transportation Committee member to make a second, please.
Happy to second. It's Vivian.
Thank you, ma'am. With that, may you call the roll, please? Can you call the roll, please?
Thank you very much. For the San Diego County Regional Airport Authority, James Sly.
Yes.
For the City of San Diego, Councilmember Campillo.
Yes.
For the County of San Diego, Chair Vargas.
Vargas, yes.
For East County, Councilmember Mendoza.
Yes.
For Metropolitan Transit System, Councilmember Moreno.
Moreno, yes.
For North County Coastal, Councilmember Zito.
Zito, yes.
For North County Inland, Mayor Ritter.
Ritter, no.
For North County Transit District, Councilmember Bhat Patel.
Yes.
For the Port of San Diego, Commissioner Naranjo.
Yes.
For South County, Councilmember Sankey.
Sankey, yes.
Thank you. And that item does pass with.
Thank you very much for that. With that, I want to remind everyone that Sandag is going to be dark in August, and there will be no meetings scheduled in August for the transportation and for the regional planning committee meetings. They both have been canceled. We are also going to be canceling the September meeting due to the holiday weekend, so the next meetings will be on October 7th. But I do want to say thank you to both the regional planning committee and the transportation committee, although we had a bumpy start. And I want to say thank you to the public and everyone who joined us today and provided us with their public comments. I know we started a little late, but we were able to catch up and we had a very productive meeting as well. So again, thank you, everyone. Thank you to the Sandag team for their thorough presentations. And I hope everybody has a lovely summer and is able to take some time to relax and to enjoy. And please be safe out there. We're going to do everything we can to make sure that people enjoy our communities as much as they can. So thank you for everything, and I hope you have a wonderful summer. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Chair.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.